Alrighty, so as promised, today I'm looking at Charlotte FC and looking at their 9 game winning streak that they recently had and unfortunately came to an end recently against NYCFC. Of course, Charlotte 9 game winning streak is tied of the longest winning streak we have ever seen in MLS history in the post shootout era. We saw the Seattle Sounder did it in 2018 as well. And what's interesting about Charlotte in terms of this 9 game winning streak and how it all started, this team was not doing well at all in the Eastern Conference. I mean, in many ways, this team has had a really roller coaster season where it's hard to believe that back in April, there was at one point in April, Charlotte was at the top of the Eastern Conference. This was a team that we thought not only was going to be a contender in the Eastern Conference, but also a contender for MLS Cup as well. But then when the calendar turned to May and heading into June as well, they just took a complete nosedive. Like this was a team that simply cannot buy a win to a point where they dropped from first place all the way down to 10th place below the red line at one point. And as we head into July, it looked like there was not a lot of hope that things were going to turn around and that this feels like it's just going to be a lost season. And something click. Like something just click in July to a point where I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. I mean, I don't even think Charlotte fans saw this coming with the way that all of a sudden as the calendar turned to July, it just feels like they took a complete 180 and realized that hey, we have a potential to be a good team, and Dean Smith side have shown that in these games that they're starting to show more of their defensive prowess. One of the things that Charlotte has always built on is on its defensive prowess, especially last season as well, giving up the least amount of goals in MLS, and we kind of saw it in this 9 game winning streak. And what's also very unlikely for Charlotte in this 9 game winning streak, for the most part, they did it without their best player, Pepe L. Pepe L was not available for most of these games, and yet somehow, in some way, they were able to still do well. And also the rival Wilfred Zaha. Say what you say in terms of him being very unhappy at first and really kind of calling out his teammate in the press conference when he arrived here. I think that kind of rejuvenated the team and almost like it feels like he has sent a message to the rest of the team that obviously what they're doing is not good enough, and it feels like it's almost like a rally cry at times to the point where this team is where they are right now, being one of the top team in the Eastern Conference and still are challenging for supporter shield race as well. Now, this 9 game winning streak, we gotta mention how it all started. And before how it all started, this all kind of began before the 9 game winning streak with a 2-2 draw against Orlando City. That was a point where, Charlotte was still in a midst of a turmoil. They were still in a nosedive. They've only won one out of the last 6 games after this one. And not to mention, they had a 2-0 lead in this game against Charlotte FC. I mean, not against Charlotte, I meant Orlando City, that is. And the fact that they blow that lead, it just feels like there was no hope with this team. And then the next game, they won 2-0 against NYCFC. Now, at this point, we didn't think that this was anything of the beginning of this crazy winning streak. We thought this was a much needed win for Charlotte FC with how things have gone for this team. It just feels like they needed this badly, especially coming off of that 2-0 blown lead that they had against Orlando City. And then the next game they won 2-1 against DC United. Now, obviously, this was also kind of expected because against DC it was one of the worst team at this point, and they're still one of the worst team right now in MLS. And they didn't really do it in the most convincing way, but hey, right now Charlotte desperately needed a win. They don't really care how pretty it is when you play against bad opponent. And this is also kind of doing a stretch where Charlotte was kind of playing against some bad opponents, so maybe that's why people weren't thinking that. Well, it's great that they finally started to get themselves back in the winning form, but these are against relatively easy opponent. I mean, the next game they won 2-1 against Atlanta United on the road, and then they won 2-0 against Toronto FC, a team that was also near the bottom of the standings. Though I will say that Toronto win that might be more impressive than people would give them consider Toronto this season. We have seen what they have caused in terms of headaches for some of these top teams, where the style that Robin Fraser play and the way that that they play that kind of negative style of play has caused a lot of problem with top teams in terms of trying to score against them. So in hindsight, that was not a bad victory as well. But again, when you beat the likes of DC, Atlanta, and Toronto during this 3 game stretch, I mean, you kind of expected, especially for a team like Charlotte that again was really underperforming during that nosedive that they had back in May and July, or May and June, that is. But then August 10th happened. So in August 10th, this was coming off of the Leeds Cup, and the Leeds Cup was a big disappointment for Charlotte. I'm not gonna mention it because obviously it's not a different, the same competition, but it was a major disappointment, and there was still some doubt or the fact that yeah, is Charlotte really truly back when they do beat feet free of the weakest team in the Eastern Conference. But then they made a statement on August 10th. Coming out of the Leeds Cup, where the confidence level maybe is still isn't there because of how it went. They won 1-0 against FC Cincinnati. Now, granted, FC Cincinnati this season they have had their struggle at home this year, and granted, Cincinnati were down to 10 men for part of this game, which kind of helped Charlotte cause of getting the win. But the fact that they are able to go to TKO Stadium against one of the better team in the Eastern Conference and put up up a shutout against a relatively good attack. That was kind of a statement saying that maybe this might not be as bad of a team as we fought in that. Maybe this winning streak is going somewhere because up to this point, it's now 5 games uh, in a row that they have won. And then the next one, they play against RSL. They won that one too. 1-0 against RSL as well. And then they, of course, won 1-0 against the New York Red Bulls in a game where, I know the Red Bulls are not a good road team, but the Red Bulls had some chances in this one. And up to this point, it's now 7 wins in a row. Now, obviously, I know there also are going to be people saying, well, a lot of these wins during this winning streak has come at home. Yes, 6 of the 9 games that they play in this winning streak are at home, and we know Charlotte is a very good home team. They've always been a very good home team ever since they came into this league. But still, you got to win your home games, and right now Charlotte did a really good job in terms of it. And not to mention, when you look at these 3 straight 1-0 win, what does that has in common? It just shows you that this team has a good defensive structure, and the fact that this was also during a time when Christian Kalina was once again going back to his goalkeeper of the year form like last season as well, making big save after big save to keep shut out in terms of that. And doing this part, Charlotte actually at one point went over 300 60 plus minutes without conceding a goal, and I think at one point won 400 minutes without conceding a goal. Now the next one they go to New England on the road, and they were able to win that one too, albeit it was a last minute winner, that is to preserve the winning streak to extend that to 8 games. But then September 13th happened, so this was really the another big test for the Charlotte FC side. I mean, obviously the 1-0 win against Cincinnati on the road, that was a statement win, but now they're facing against a team that is still in the mix of the support ratio as well. They're facing against the giant and the big evil known as Inter Miami, and especially with the way that Messi and friends are going to be playing in that game as well. How will Charlotte do in front of the home crowd? Well, safe to say they did all right in that game. I mean, you just that game. I think you could argue might be the best win that Charlotte has ever had in their franchise history. The fact that they shut down Inter Miami in that game for the most part, and the fact that that penalty miss by Messi, how big of a momentum switch that is. I think that is probably one of the biggest momentum switch I've ever seen this season in an MLS game, where that miss not only rejuvenated the Charlotte team, but they just put it on ass beating on this Inter Miami team after that. 3-0 was the final score of this game. Tokomati, who really I think is another guy that should be in the headlines. I mean, everybody of course will talk about Wilfred Zaha and what he had brought to this team in terms of his 9 game winning streak. Don't forget about Tukamati as well. This is a guy that single-handedly has not only replaced Ajiman, but has really just kind of put the doubts are Charlotte the fact that they need to look for a number 9. I mean, with the sale of Ajiman, it feels like they were kind of screwed in terms of that spot. Who would have thought that Tugamati was a good replacement, and I argue probably even better than what Ajiman has, because Ajiman, as good as he was before he went to Derby County, he was not scoring at the rate that Tugamati is doing right now. I mean, he is just kind of came out of nowhere, coming out of MLS Next Pro as well from Crown Legacy. Crown Legacy has really produced some really good talented player recently, and again, this also kind of owns why Charlotte has been pretty good despite the fact that they're not one of the best banner in the league. They have really heavily lean on their academy and also lean on their MLSX Pro team as well, and it has paid a huge dividend with the way that they've been playing in this season and even in season pass as well. But obviously, as the old saying goes, all good things eventually has to come to an end. And in the last game, we did finally saw the 9 game winning streak come to an end. There was a chance that maybe Charlotte could break the record for the most wins in a row in the post shootout era, but it was not meant to be. And it's kind of ironic the fact that the winning streak that started this record amount of winning that Charlotte has had was against NYCFC. So that now they have to go on the road to play against NYCFC. That was always going to be a tough task as well because NYCFC themselves have also found some form, and especially when NYCFC are playing at home against quality opponent, they're going to do well and take advantage of the baseball dimension as well. But yeah, in the end, NYCFC was able to win 2-0 against Charlotte, and that was kind of the game that Charlotte kind of showed a little bit of the bad run of form that they had, and that kind of run of form where they just completely fell apart between the month of May and June, and that of course end the 9 game winning streak. Now, despite that, the good news is they still have a chance to finish in the top four of the standings. And looking at the last three games, they got Montreal in the next game at home. That should be a win considering Montreal is not doing very well in CU next season mode. The same goes for the next game after Montreal going on the road against a lowly DC side as well. Now the final game could be maybe a supporter shield decider. I've mentioned before in terms of the supporter shield race. It feels like Charlotte and Philadelphia Union might be a game that could decide that depending on if Charlotte is still in the mix in terms of the supporter ratio race, or maybe if that is not the case, Charlotte could maybe play a little spoiler role because the Unions still are currently at the top of the supporter ratio race as well. But either way, what an incredible turnaround it's been for Charlotte FC. I mean, no one really saw this coming. I mentioned before that this turnaround is very similar to what I saw with Minnesota last season, where between this season and Minnesota last season, it's almost very similar with the way that Minnesota last season, they start off very well in the start of the season, got themselves second in the West at one point, and then just completely fell apart in June because of the international break and them losing players and went on a 6 game losing streak, and then they finished the season relatively well as well, being one of well, I wouldn't say a top team, but they definitely got themselves back in the playoff conversation as well. But even then, Minnesota did not do something similar to what we see Charlotte did today. I mean, this 9 game winning streak has really kind of risen this team from the dead to now be once again a legit contender in the Eastern Conference and another team out of numerous list of teams that we see right now in the East that could be contender of winning the Eastern Conference and potentially representing the East in MLS Cup this year as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at Charlotte 9 game winning streak. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're a Charlotte fan, is the good run of form is going to continue for the rest of the season? I think it is because they do have two very easy teams to face against. But once again to the playoffs, can they be able to topple some of the bigger team? Because like I said, the East is going to be an absolute bloodbath this year, and that whoever is going to emerge out of the East, there's a good chance that they maybe could be winning MLS Cup this year. No disrespect to the Western Conference, that is, but as I've said many times before, the East is much stronger than the West. It's been that way for the past couple of years. But there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.